Pistons general manager Troy Weaver has done a great job of assembling a young core from just 2 years ago where it looked like the Pistons didn't even really have any. However, if you had to rank this young core that Weaver has put together based on what you believe their ceiling will be with the Pistons in the future, what tiers would you put each player in? We'll do that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. If you listen to this on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on, leave us a 5-star review. Those are both the best ways to support the podcast. And like I've been telling you guys at the beginning of every episode, I will be notifying you guys of this until it comes time. I'm not going to be here at the end of this month, beginning of October. I'm getting married. I'm going to be in Jamaica, so you guys will not begin the beginning of preseason coverage, a little bit of training camp coverage. I won't be here. So if you guys are wondering why isn't there episodes of Locked On Pistons, where's Ku at? I'm down getting married. That's why I'm not going to be around. But as soon as I get back, I'll be sure to talk with you guys about what's happened in preseason, what I've missed. But anyways, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and rank the Pistons young core, put them in tiers based off not what they are right now, but based off what you believe that their ceiling will be for the Pistons in the future. Not if they get traded and go somewhere else. What do you think each player's ceiling is with the Pistons? And the higher your ceiling is for this player, you put them in the higher tier. And to do this episode with me, we have friend of the podcast. You guys all know him very well, Bryce Simon, host of the Pistons Pulse podcast. Bryce, thank you for coming on, man. You got the house to yourself tonight, man. We're about to have some fun. You feel me? How you feeling about ranking these tiers, man? You excited?
Yeah, I'm excited. I put it together. I told you I'm a little nervous about a couple players. I'm sure we'll both get cooked for some guys that maybe we don't have enough belief in or too much belief in. But I'm excited to do it. And as always, I'm excited to see where we differ because a lot of times we see the things the same way, but I have a feeling tonight we may go in some different ways with some of these guys. I don't know. We haven't talked about it specifically, but I'm interested to see.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that we haven't talked guys at all before this. Me and Bryce usually text and usually talk about our topics beforehand. We literally, all I told him was the topic. We don't know where we're going to go with this at all. So it's going to be just as big of a surprise to us than it is going to be to you guys. All right, so Bryce put it into 5 tiers for us, and we're going to go through these 5 tiers. You got tier 5, non-rotation or off the team. You got tier 4, solid rotation pieces. Tier 3, championship role players. Tier 2, better than a championship role player. And then tier 1, face of the franchise. So I think we should start from the bottom because I feel like as we work up, that's when it gets more interesting.
Okay.
So let's start from the bottom. Tier 5, non-rotation, and off the team. And actually, real quick, let me give you guys all the players that we're considering a part of the young core.
Yeah.
Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Saddiq Bey, Stu, Killian Hayes, Marvin Bagley, Hamidou Diallo, Kevin Knox, and Isaiah Livers. Yes, I'm including Kevin Knox in there because he is around the same age as all of them. But okay, Bryce, let's go ahead. I'll let you go first. Tier 5, non-rotation, off the team players. How many do you have in this tier?
I have 4.
4. Okay, you have more than I have in here, but okay.
So you want me to just name all 4 of them? You want me to go one at a time? So
let's go ahead. Go for it.
I'll start with the one I think we'll both. Kevin Knox.
Yeah, we both agree on that one.
Hamidou Diallo.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is kind of how I did it is this, whenever this team is really trying to win, like is in the playoffs, this is where I think these guys will be contributing at the level. Okay. So off the team, Killian Hayes.
Okay.
And Marvin Bagley III.
See, okay. So Bryce is now throwing me for a loop because when he said he had 4 people in this tier 5, I was like, no, there's no way you have 4 in there. But then, like, the last 2, the 2 that I would, like, move up more, the reasoning for your last 2 kind of make me want to also put the same 2 in tier 5 now. But
I just don't think we've talked about this with Killian Hayes. I don't think Killian Hayes ends up being on this team, reaching his potential on this team. He ends up going somewhere else. That's just my opinion. I think the same thing with Bagley, and a little bit of Bagley's has to do with who I have in tiers above him and where I think eventually he's quote unquote expendable or whatever. So that's kind of the way I looked at it. In 3, 4, 5 years, when this team is hopefully competing for deep playoff runs, what tier will these players be in? In my opinion, Knox is a non-rotation playoff guy. Hami, borderline, but even if he is, he's off the team. And then for Hayes and Bagley, I just think they're not on the Pistons 3 to 5 years down the road.
All right, so I'm not going to lie. You kind of convinced me on some of these. I'm going to go with 3 players in this tier. I'm going to go with Diallo, Kevin Knox, and real quickly, Diallo actually gave a little pause too. Because I've said on the podcast, I feel like if he actually were to become the defensive player that he actually could be because of his measurements, his athleticism, all that, I could see because this team needs wings, big wings, athletic wings.
Yeah.
So if he was able to actually do that, I actually think he could be a rotational player on the team. But I feel like that's to a point now to where it's so hard for me envisioning that actually happening to where I'm just going to leave him in the off the team part.
The other thing, Koo, with Hami is if there's enough other shooting in the rotation around him, you can get away with him not even becoming a better shooter, if that makes sense. So, like, as this team continues to morph and transition and we see different phases, like you could see a world where he ends up in the second unit because maybe you have a really good shooting point guard or really good shooting 5-man in the second unit. And so you can have a 2-3 man with just hyper athletic, defensive minded, rim running, that type of stuff. And his shooting is not as much of a liability. So there's a world, honestly, where any of these guys are part of the rotation. Exactly. I'm just to the point where I just didn't want to say all 10 guys are rotation players, So like you got to start making decisions. I think this guy's going to pan out. I think this guy isn't. And this is kind of where I'm at.
All right. So I agree with you with Knox and Hami. And the third guy I'm going to put in here, I'm not going to put all 4, but the third one I'll put in is Killian. So I've said this before in the podcast. I've said it a lot of times in the spaces that me and Bryce used to do. Killian Hayes, I feel like in any outcome, basically any outcome with his future, I feel like we've ends with him traded. So like if he doesn't improve, traded. Or like maybe he just write out his contract and let him walk. But either way, he's off the team. If he gets a little bit better this season or comes back the same or gets a little bit better, shows a little bit of improvement, I still think he probably ends up getting traded. You don't see very many top picks for a team that end up not a star, but end up like a decent role player. They usually don't keep those ones. Those guys end up going somewhere else. So then I also have them getting traded in that scenario. And then if Killian actually shows legit improvement this year, getting to the point where I believe he can get to, 2 things I think will hold him back from being on this team. 1, I think if he shows the type of improvement to where he shows, okay, I'm showing why I was the 7th overall pick, he won't want to be here and just be a 6th man. I don't think he'll want to do that. And 2, I think the team, if they see improvement, they might just try to trade him and get some value while it's getting higher. So I see those 2 outcomes right there for him if he actually improves. Basically, any outcome with Killian based on his improvement, I just don't see a world where he stays. I know I actually had a few people tweet at me saying if he actually improves, then they don't see why you can't start him, Jaden Ivey, or Cade Cunningham together. I don't see that at all. I don't think that you can do that with those 3. So if he actually gets to a point where it's like, okay, he's showing why he actually may be showing that improvement, I think he still gets traded either way. So I'll agree with you with Killian. I actually was going to put Killian like the 4th tier or 3rd tier, but then that would be I thought about the fact I still think he's going to end up being traded. I don't think he'll end up being on the team at that point. So that's why I moved him.
I want to make it clear. I think Killian Hayes and Marvin Bagley III are at least tier 4 rotation players, like very much so. I don't think they're like non-NBA players. Like I think there's a chance Kevin Knox isn't an NBA player in 3 years from now. He may be, he may be not. I know we're all, kind of excited, intrigued after the Rico Hines run, but I think Killian Hayes and Marvin Bagley are both going to be at least rotation NBA players. I'm trying to be realistic. These 10 guys have come onto the Pistons in the last 30 months or something like that. The last 3 drafts, couple guys at the trade deadline, Knox this offseason. Like there's just no way all 10 of these guys are on the roster 3 years from now, Q. I just don't believe it. If it is, and this is a high-tier playoff team with these 10 guys, then Troy Weaver is like, executive of the year multiple times in a row. I just think eventually you consolidate this talent. They trade them, guys get moved. They're just not all going to be here, in my opinion. And so you have to start to choose which ones you think fit and which ones you think eventually move on.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part about talking about this, because I agree. I don't think it's unrealistic. I don't think anyone believes all 10 guys will be here in 2-3 years. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. So it's interesting to see who we think, and we want to hear what you guys think, obviously, in the comment section or over on Twitter. What tiers would you put these players in? Who do you see still here in a few years, and what tier, what role, etc.? When we come back, we'll get into tier 4, which is the solid rotation pieces. We'll start to move a little bit quicker. But that tier 5, I feel like that started off with a little bit of a bang. Bryce actually, I don't know. This might be the first time Bryce actually convinced me to completely change my take on the podcast. I was not going to put Killian down there, but I ended up doing it. So when we come back, we'll talk about tier 4. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Just like I always say, they're constantly coming out with new flavors. This one is delicious, indulgent cookie dough, covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to this new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of having to make it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories. They have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them as well. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and your family. It'll be the perfect treat. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and they taste good. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture tastes absolutely amazing. You are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late-night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, ditch the fat, ditch the sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Tastes good. It's healthy for you. Everything in one. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Built Bar. The best tasting protein bar ever. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast, or leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And real quickly, I think you guys should also, along with subscribing to the channel, you guys need to go ahead and hit that bell icon so you guys get notified. By the time you guys listen to this 2 days ago, I went live randomly on the YouTube channel at night. I was bored. Megan's been gone all weekend. She's been up north with her family. So I was just chilling in my room by myself. I'd been playing Madden all day. I was ready to chuck my controller out the window. And I was like, I have to do something. I was like, I can't do it. So I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and go live and talk with everybody. And we had a good turnout. We had a lot of people come in. We had a lot of fun. It was last second, so we didn't have as many people as we could have. I can't tell you guys the exact date on when we'll do those, but I'm thinking I'm going to do them more randomly and into the future. So if you guys want to be notified every time that happens, click that bell icon. You get notified anytime I go live. If you guys want to be a part of the YouTube lives. But anyways,
what does MUT mean whenever you're tweeting that out about Madden?
Madden Ultimate Team.
Oh,
so it's like do you know what Ultimate Team is?
No.
It's basically like collecting cards. You know how like people collect baseball cards and football cards, all that stuff. It's basically like the video game version. So people they put out cards. Like you're just collecting cards. And you play with the cards.
Okay.
So it's basically the same thing. So like I'll have like Matthew Stafford on my team. He's my quarterback when I go into a game. Like that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But those of you guys who play MUT, I do not have Matthew Stafford as my quarterback. I know that I'm a very comp player. I'm not out here throwing. But anyways, Bryce, you have to get into the video game life a little bit, man. You have to give yourself some time, dog.
Bro, I grew up on it. Like NCAA football, I played dynasty mode, did all the recruiting. Like I lived on that stuff. I've just been out of the game for a minute, so I don't know what some of this new stuff is.
Fair enough, man. All right, let's get into tier 4. Solid rotation pieces. All right, Bryce, you can go ahead. How many people do you have in this one?
1. I think you have 2.
I do.
Or maybe 3. Because you didn't have Marvin Bagley III in the last one. All I have in tier 4 is Isaiah Livers.
Okay. All right. So in tier 4, I'm not going to let you persuade me this time. I'm not going to let you change my mind. In tier 4, I'm going to put Marvin Bagley in this one. My explanation for Marvin Bagley is I think even when the Pistons are trying to compete or try and contend for playoff spots and in the playoffs, etc., I think he can still be a regular season guy that you play consistently.
Sure.
And he just may not play in the playoffs. And there's guys like that across the league with teams that you can play them throughout the regular season. They're really good regular season guys that help you get wins there. But when the playoffs come around, they may not be able to play. Hopefully
that's great value, right? Like there's a lot of value in that to get those that seeding.
Tremendous. So the hope is that he gets to a point defensively where he can at least play in the playoffs. But if he doesn't get there, I still can see his value as a regular season player for the team moving forward. I don't see, because it's supposed to be their absolute ceiling. So I feel like if he gets to a point defensively when that happens, I think he might move himself up in the tier 3. But again, I think it's another thing with Diallo.
These are our thoughts on where they're actually going to hit their ceiling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, like there's a lot of these dudes that could end up in tier 1. Like, yes, there's a small percentage chance Saddiq Bey ends up in tier 1. But I think this is more like what we truly think that they're going to hit for their ceiling.
Yeah, so that's why I got Marvin Bagley in tier 4. I'm kind of questioning doing this now. I'm going to rub some feathers with this one.
I feel like, so I thought you would definitely have Isaiah Stewart in this tier.
I do.
Yeah.
I have Stu in this one. Because
it all comes down to whether you believe in the shot or not. If the shot doesn't come, he's a tier 4 guy. If the shot comes, he's absolutely a tier 3 guy.
I can agree with that. If a shot comes, I'd put him in tier 3. It's just, again, I refuse to let the offseason stuff sway me. If he actually shows up and does it, great. He moves up into tier 3 for me. But if I had, again, I told you guys this last time, if I had to put like hardcore money on it, I'm not putting hardcore money on Stu becoming a stretch big out of nowhere. So I got those 2 guys in tier 4. That's why I'm leaving that.
No, I think here's the thing. I disagree, but I completely understand. I think that's sometimes whenever we get into debates, not me and you necessarily, but just in general, is like people refuse to see like that there is another side. I completely understand you not believing in the Isaiah Stewart jump shot. Like, I get it. I buy into it. Some because of what I've seen, some because of the quote unquote work ethic, some because the organization believes in him so much. I buy into it, but I'm okay with anybody who's like, no, I'm not buying that. I don't think it's going to come. He's a tier 4 rotation guy. He's going to be a really good defender who doesn't bring a whole lot offensively. Okay, I can live with it. I disagree with you, but I completely understand why you may have him in that tier.
And I just want to make it clear again, if the shot were to come, I'd put him at tier 3. But like Bryce said, this is what we believe what they're actually going to end up as. And that's just where I have Stu right now. He's going to have to change my mind with the shooting.
Yeah. It's the same thing with Killian Hayes, right? It's the same thing with Killian Hayes. You and I disagree on Killian Hayes' jump shot as well. Like, I feel like I've, at a certain point this offseason, just taken a stance on Killian that I kind of just think he's going to cap out at a certain point, and you see a higher upside. And I see the upside you see. I just don't believe in it as much as you do. So, but Hayes could be as high as a tier 3, I think, if on this team, but definitely on another team. And like you said, even with Marvin Bagley the third, if the defense gets better, absolutely. He wasn't in tier 5 for me because I think he stinks. He's in tier 5 because I think he ends up on another team.
Correct. All right. Well, you don't have no one else in tier 4?
I just had Livers.
All right. Do you want to explain why you have Livers there, or you want to move on?
Yeah, I mean, I've been super high on Isaiah Livers for this team specifically, and I think he's one of those guys that's always going to have a role in the NBA because of what he does. I had a hard time saying championship role player because we have only seen 19 games. But again, I assume that's where you're going to have him, because I don't think you have him in tier 1 or tier 2. But if you do, then we're going to have a little bit of a debate. But like a guy that shoots over 40% from 3 and is a great team defender and a really good ball mover, that can be a championship role player. It definitely could be. Right now, I'm just more comfortable tier 4.
All right, so I guess we can just move straight into tier 3 then. You brought it up. I do have Isaiah Livers in tier 3. Now listen, I completely understand how I sound a little bit contradictory here. I completely understand, because my whole thing with Isaiah Stewart is sample size. I've seen him shoot less than 3 a game over the last 2 years. We don't have enough sample size for me to believe in that. And then we got 19 games of Isaiah Livers. I'm sitting here saying
But-
that I believe.
And I don't need to defend you, right? Like everybody knows basketball. Isaiah Livers at least has like a 4-year college sample size where he shot legit and all sorts of attempts in games. So I think there's a little bit of understanding of why you would buy the Livers shot a little bit more than the Isaiah Stewart shot.
Correct. So my thing with Isaiah Livers is I've said this before in the podcast, and there's another player in here that I think that I'm gonna get. We're gonna come back to Livers when we get to him. I'm just gonna be a little bit of a hot take, but Isaiah Livers, I've said this before to Bryce. I think Livers has a chance to be like. Again, I think he could get like 8 to 9 threes up in a game if you have him in the starting lineup. He can get 8 to 9 threes up, shoot 40%, get like 15 points a game, and be one of your best defenders on the team. And that kind of guy right there, I think is one of your most important players on the entire team. Outside of your superstar, every team needs a guy like that. And the teams with guys like that, like I guess Boston's would be like Marcus Smart, even though Marcus Smart isn't an outside lights out shooter. But he's one of those. Grant Williams is another one of those. Al Horford's another one of those. I feel like.
You know who needs that guy right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Correct.
They have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and then they got the two bigs, and then they don't want to play Okoro because he can't shoot, but they don't want to play LeVert because they don't need a guy that needs that much usage. They need a guy like Isaiah Livers mold who's just going to catch and shoot, be a ball mover, and then defend really well. So,
perfect.
Like, to your point, that's a starting level player.
And I completely believe in Isaiah Livers with that, man. I know it's only been 19 games, but like you said, the shooting, I completely buy. I think he's going to be a 40% shooter in the league for a long time. His defensive ability, because of Juwan Howard drilling in NBA concepts to him over that time in Michigan, he showed up in the NBA immediately, was really comfortable on that end. And you guys hear me all the time say that usually rookies are not that good on that end of the floor. He was pretty decent on that side of the floor. He's only going to get better. And again, I think he's a smart offensive player, a smart defensive player, a guy who can hit threes like that at that high of a volume. I think he has a chance to seriously be one of the most important players at the point where the Pistons are contending for that. I think he has a chance to be one of the most important players on the team. For example, just real quick, I'd say like Tayshaun Prince. Like Tayshaun wasn't a star of the team. Tayshaun wasn't even an all-star like that. But Tayshaun was one of the most important players on that team. You couldn't do it without Tayshaun. But Tayshaun wasn't Ben Wallace. He wasn't Rasheed. He wasn't Chauncey Britt. Like, he wasn't those guys. But he was just as damn important as those guys. And that's kind of like where I see Isaiah Livers' ceiling with this team kind of being.
As long as all the other pieces are there, that's going to be true for Isaiah Livers. What could end up hurting Isaiah Livers is if Jaden Ivey isn't a tier 1, tier 2 guy, if Jalen Duren isn't a tier 1, tier 2 guy, if they don't land a lottery pick or a free agent, and all of a sudden you're asking Isaiah Livers to be the number 3 option on your team,
right.
The fan base is going to get very, very frustrated with him very fast because that's not his ceiling. So he's one of those guys that in his role is super important and provides great value. But if you ask him to play above his role, it's not going to necessarily be pretty.
Exactly. And actually, before we get on to the tier 2 and the rest of the players in tier 3, obviously, we're going to go to the ad break. But when we come back, I actually want to talk about what Bryce just said real quick. I feel like that's something that a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of people that watch basketball need to understand. I want to bring it up when we come back. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button over at the YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon as well so you can get notified when I go live. Also, if you listen to whatever podcast platform, leave us a 5-star review. It's another great way to support the podcast. All right, Bryce, I said I wanted to kind of give – we still have the rest of tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1 to go. But I kind of want to give a little bit more thought to what you just said. And you'll see this on like top 100 rankings by like ESPN Athletic, all kinds of people. And I feel like this is like the biggest misunderstanding, at least to me, amongst people when you argue about who's better, this player, who's better. A guy who is elite in his role, I feel like is more valuable than a guy who maybe can do more than him, but isn't good enough to be like a tier 2 guy. Like, for example, obviously Draymond Green, I think, is like the first guy that you like would jump off the bat there. So Draymond Green versus like I'm going to throw this example because he's the first name that came to my mind. I don't know why. A prime Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay can do more with the ball in his hands. Rudy Gay can do more scoring wise. He's more flashy. He can do more stuff. You can have Rudy Gay as like the second prime. Rudy Gay is like, well, at least during his time, like maybe a second or third like scorer on your team. You can't do that with Draymond, but who's better? Draymond, because Draymond's one of the best role players ever. And if you have him in that role, he's going to be outstanding. Whereas Rudy Gay was never good enough to be like an actual good one as like a second, third scorer, if you get what I'm saying. So I feel like that's the real core argument that a lot of people have. And I'll take the elite role player in his role over the guy who maybe can do a little bit more, but not enough to make it worth it.
It's about value versus talent, right? What kind of value? And the Warriors team, again, you take Steph off that team, and who knows how some of those guys' careers go. But Draymond fits perfectly in that role. You know who else I thought fit perfectly in their role this year? Andrew Wiggins, man. Like, like maybe he hasn't lived up to number one pick hype or whatever. He was phenomenal late in the playoffs, but he was in a certain role that fit his talent. He wasn't the face of the franchise. He wasn't the number one option. And that's so important for guys to be in their role. That's why when an injury happens, to a really good team, it's not just about the guy that got hurt. It's about the number 3 option now having to be the number 2 option and the 6th having to start. And that's why you see a 6th man stay as the 6th man, and maybe you grab the 11th man and put him in the starting lineup. Like we see that all the time because you're trying to keep guys in their roles where they can be comfortable, confident, and just thrive. And some guys struggle, right? Allen Iverson, my favorite player of all time, he only had one role, and that was to be the man. And when he was no longer good enough to be the man, then it was over for him. We're seeing it with Russell Westbrook before our eyes right now.
Exactly. All right. Well, I just want to give that real quick. I thought that was a good conversation to have because I feel like that's something that everyone kind of needs to think about a lot. But anyways, let's get to the rest of the tier 3 players. I had Isaiah Livers. I have a few other guys, but I'm going to let you get some of your tier 3 dudes in here.
Yeah, so I have Stu and Bey in my tier 3. And I think I feel pretty good with Stu there. We've talked about it. We don't have to get back into it. I think the shooting is going to be good enough combined with the defense. That's a big time, maybe not even starter, but as a role player, first big off the bench, whatever it ends up being. And then Saddiq Bey, I just think he's at least that level. We've had this debate over and over again. I know people aren't going to like that he's not in my tier 2. I have a feeling he's not going to be in your tier 2. Maybe he will. But I think he is definitely a championship role player. And I think that's high regard for, a guy that was selected where Saddiq Bey was selected. I don't think that that's a knock on him. That's a big time player in the NBA.
So this is my thing. The tier 3, the championship role players, I cut off outside the starting lineup for me. So
okay.
So like the 5, everyone I have here and above are people I think could be in the starting lineup on the contending team.
Sure.
If you're not in the starting lineup, I have you below in this out of rotation pieces. I feel like if you're coming off the bench, you're probably, I don't want to say expendable, but you can be moved and people can replace you. So that's I get you have Stu up there because you believe in his shot, but I have it just cut off at the point of the starting lineup for me. And that's why I'm gonna bring up Saddiq Bey. I feel like Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Livers kind of battle each other here. It's gonna be interesting because I've seen a few people start to think this. It's way too small of a sample size to actually think it and actually say it out loud. But I can see a future where Isaiah, just like we were just talking about that last conversation, where Isaiah Livers is so good of a shooter, such a great team defender, and such a great connector, to where he maybe could have more value in the future than Saddiq Bey. I could see that happening. Do I think it's likely? Probably not. I think Saddiq is just more talented than Isaiah Livers. I believe in Saddiq enough to where I don't think that will end up being the case. But I can see that future where that happens because of, I think Isaiah Livers probably will end up being a better shooter than Saddiq. I just feel like Saddiq will end up doing a little bit more offensively to where it's more viable, I guess. But those two guys are going to go at each other. I do have Saddiq in the tier 3. I think he's going to be a starter for the team moving forward. I think he's going to be like a 10-plus year NBA starter on teams. So I have him in that tier 3. I don't think he's ever going to be a number 2. I don't think he's ever going to be a number 1. Like, we're talking top 15 players at that point. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 15 player in the NBA or anything like that. So I have him tier 3, which I don't think is a dig. I think that's really great if you're a starter on a championship team. So I got Livers, I got Saddiq, and then I got Jalen Duren in this lineup.
Sure.
I think Jalen Duren, I don't know if you're going to have him in tier 2 or tier 3, but I very much like Jalen Duren's future with the team. I think he fits exactly what I've been wanting on the team so badly. I just don't know if I see, like, even with everything that he's like raw at right now that he may have in the future, I feel like even if you make him good at all those things, I still don't know if he becomes like, because in tier 2, I'm talking about like multiple time all-star kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I don't know if I see him being that. I can see him maybe being an all-star in a really good year, but I don't know if I see multi-time all-star in his career. So that's why I have him tier 3.
So that's what I was gonna look. My high-end ceiling comp for him has been Bam Adebayo. Like, that's where I've gone for Jalen.
Well, if he hits Bam, he might be like, he's getting close to tier 1 kind of stuff if he's in Bam.
So like, we can move on to tier 2, because tier 2 I have Ivy and Duren. And
okay,
here's what I know: people are going, we haven't even seen him play. I know we haven't seen him play. Like, so I'm going off what I saw in college, what I've scouted. Like, yes, the sample size is less, so my assurancy of where I feel like they are is less than how I feel about these other guys. I will readily admit that either one of these guys could end up in tier 4. We don't know. And so that's kind of why I left them in tier 2. I don't think either of them are face of the franchise type talents, to be honest with you, Koo. I think everybody knows where the one guy I'm going to have in that tier. But I do think I'm almost higher on Jalen Duren's ceiling than I am on Jaden Ivey's, to be honest with you at this point. Like, I'm super high on Jalen Duren because I do think he's skilled. I think the mid-range shot comes, maybe eventually a three-pointer. I think he can dribble it a little bit. I think he can pass it. And then all the other freak athletic stuff we've already seen.
So that's interesting because, you know what? I'm not going to let you convince me out of this one. I'm not going to let you do it.
So I just want to say this, and you taught me how to do the shameless self-plugs here on Locked On. You had to school me and teach me. On Tuesday, we got the Pistons Pulse comes out, and we had assistant GM Rob Murphy on with us, Omari and I. And the first thing he said about Jalen Duren was he's more skilled than people realize. We had him in our top 5. Like, the Pistons freaking love this dude, and they're going to do everything they can to make him successful and give him opportunities. And I just continue to hear he's more skilled than what people realize. He's more skilled than what people realize. And I'm drinking the Kool-Aid to steal from one of your old segments.
Fair enough. So this is just simply my thing. I do think he's incredibly skilled. I think he has a lot of raw skill. I just think in order for him to get to tier 2, I think each one of those skills would have to get like really high. And I think it's just it's hard for me to see every single one hitting it. If it happens, if he's Bam Adebayo, I think he's closing in on tier 1.
Sure.
Like face of the franchise kind of stuff. I think he's getting close to that. But I think I'm gonna stay reserved. I'm keeping him in tier 3. In tier 2, I have Jaden Ivey, and you almost swung me. Honestly, this might be how I feel. This might actually be how I feel. But Jaden Ivey's the only other person on this team besides Cade where I can see a multi-time All-Star.
Sure.
And I can see like another star on the team. However, what you were just saying, I can, but the thing is, I can also see a future where Duren ends up much higher than Ivey, and Ivey doesn't get nearly as high as we think.
Okay, so that's what I want to say. Even though I have both of these guys in my tier 2, I was talking earlier about what's realistic. It's probably not realistic that both end up tier 2 guys, right? Like, it's probably not realistic that Weaver landed 2 guys in one draft that are tier 2 multi-time all-star guys. So I left them both in there, but I wouldn't put a bunch of money that both of them actually land in this. I'm just not ready to pick which one yet. I don't know which, like, one of them probably ends up just like a role player, really solid guy, multi-year starter. And then I do think, another one ends up being more than that. We haven't seen either of them enough to know which one it is. So,
right. I think I got Jaden Ivey in there. Because his athleticism is just so off the charts.
It is.
He can get to I think he's going to draw a ton of free throws, which I think is key to being one of those guys. You have to draw free throws. The thing that's really concerning me, I considered putting him in tier 3, but I'm a believer in his ceiling. Or actually, let me not say I'm a believer in his ceiling. I can see that ceiling.
Sure.
To a point where I can put him in tier 2, but it's just his in-between game is so worrisome to me that if he doesn't improve that, he's going to be tier 3 or maybe even lower.
Yeah,
like that's how frightening I don't actually know. Let me not say frightening, but how much he has to improve in that in-between area. Not just scoring, not just mid-range, not just floaters, like decision-making, not panicking, knowing how to make the right read, not rushing, things like I feel like everything in the in-between area, he's so incredibly raw at. And him at tier 2 is him dominating off ball and also one of the best on ball guys. If he's just really good off ball and good in transition, he's falling below tier 2. But I can see the future where he does improve that on ball stuff and he finds himself a multi-time all-star.
Yeah, that mid-range stuff is important. I'm really interested to see how many free throws he gets this year. Because he is a guy, but we saw it with Cade last year, right? Where Cade didn't get a good whistle and get to the free throw line a lot. And so I'm interested to see how often we see Jaden Ivey, because he is so explosive and athletic and is going to put a ton of pressure on the rim. Is he going to get a good whistle? Is he going to get a more favorable whistle? Because those two guys could put a lot of pressure on the rim and get a lot of free throw attempts between that backcourt. So it'll be really interesting to track that early in the season this year.
I think he's going to draw a lot of fouls, and I've said this before. I think he's going to draw a lot of them on just beating his defender to a spot and getting like that bump foul.
Yeah,
like I think he's going to get a lot of them just off that because of his first step and how explosive he is. I think he's going to get a ton of them just off of that. So it's going to be interesting to watch for sure. But I think it's quite obvious both of us have the same guy in tier 1. Yeah. Cade Cunningham, face of the franchise. Is there anything else we even need to say about that?
No, I mean, I hope we all always remember, because sometimes I even lose sight of this. It all comes back to Cade. All roads lead back to Cade. Because if Cade isn't tier 1, if Cade isn't this dude, none of this other stuff matters at the end of the day. I mean, I guess it does. Like eventually you could package them all for a tier 1 guy, whatever. But like Cade has to be the dude we all think and believe he's going to be for this thing to really go where we all think it's going to go. And that's still a few years down the road. I'm not saying right now or even next year or whatever. Again, just a little spoiler, like Rob Murphy said multiple times on the episode, we're at ground zero this season. I thought that was really telling, Koo, as we were talking.
Stop right there.
No, I thought of you when I said it. And he said it at least twice on the episode. He said, we're at ground zero right now with this thing. And that was just very telling to me that he brought that up without us directly asking about anything like that. So, and I will say we talked to him about Cade, obviously, and he talked about Cade's leadership. And I think that's why I believe so much in Cade as a face of the franchise type guy.
When this podcast drops Tuesday, I need you to tweet that quote out and then tag me. I listen, guys, I'm going to go off there's a quick tangent here. I seriously don't understand. It's seriously shocking to me. I don't understand how so many people don't see this. Like so many people believe they're playoff destined, or this team, like the moves they made in the offseason.
Not in this Eastern Conference. In this Eastern Conference. Maybe in the West. Because all the teams that are tanking are in the West, Koo. Utah, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, probably Houston again. The only other team, there's 2 other teams, right? Orlando and then Indiana if they end up moving Turner and Hield. But the West, you could almost see where they would sneak in as like the 10 just because they get out-tanked essentially by some of those other teams. This Eastern Conference is brutal.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me, man. I'm so happy he said that because it's so clear by their offseason moves what they believed this season was going to be. It's so clear.
So whether that, God dang, there's so many questions I realized after the fact I wish I would have asked him. But I still want to know if this was plan A. That's what I want to know. Was this plan A, or was DeAndre Ayton plus Jalen Brunson plan A? Was, something else plan A, or were those things never really in play? And this was always like, hey, another year of this, we'll nail this draft. He talked about the draft night stuff with Jalen Duren falling and all that, which was really cool. And I don't want to spoil too much, but I would love to know that how much in play Ayton, Brunson, and all those guys were, or if they were just using Pistons cap space as leverage with, negotiations with these other teams.
Hey, man. I'm advise all of you guys to go listen to that episode. I'm done arguing about it. I'm done talking about it because everyone keeps coming at me when it's just so clear what their moves were signaling and what this season is going to be. They're still a while away. They have to grow. I'm happy that he actually mentioned that on the podcast and he talked about it a little bit. I'm happy about that.
I think where people get frustrated is whenever you say tank, like the Pistons are going to tank, like they're purposely going to lose this year. To me, everybody's interest goes hand in hand, Koo. The interest is to get a high draft pick while developing your young players. Perfect. Let's play all these young dudes, let them play a ton of minutes and lose games, and then go draft Scoot Henderson and try to figure out this backcourt of Ivy, Cade, and Scoot, which I just think would be incredible for them to try to figure out. But I love Scoot.
I didn't even say mine, but obviously Cade's in my tier 1. I want to end this off with, Bryce. And don't be a coward. Don't be a chicken here. Don't be a coward here. I think the fun question, or at least an interesting question, is we all have Cade tier 1. What's the lowest tier you can see Cade falling to? And be honest, what's the lowest tier you see him falling to? Like, in the worst case scenario, like, what do you think is his absolute floor?
Ooh.
You want me to go first?
Like, if you want me to be 1,000% honest, like, I could see a very small world of tier 3 where he's like a championship role player, a connector piece, good defender, 36% three-point shooter, gets to his mid-range, but maybe isn't one of your top 2-3 best players. I don't think in any way that's going to happen, but I could see a world, I guess, where it does.
My floor, I have him at tier 2. Okay. I don't think he falls past tier 2 no matter what. And I just want to make this clear. We both have him at very like 90. I have him like 95% chance being the face of the franchise. But I'm just saying, if we have
I'm gonna be devastated if he doesn't. Like I'm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be bad. What was he last season? What tier? Like if he was on a playoff contender, championship contender last season, what kind of player would he have been? Would he have been a tier 2 player last year?
No.
Okay. All right. So I feel okay.
But I think in his prime, at the very worst, if you take like
because he's gonna get better at least a little bit at some of this stuff.
Yeah. So if you like take the worst possible scenario for me is tier 2. I don't see him falling past that. But I think that's a small world where that happens.
Absolutely.
I just want to get your opinion on that. I thought it was gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess we got wrapped up there.
I mean, he's too good at so many intangible things to not be a valuable player on a team in some way.
Right. So I guess that's it there. Let us know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter what you guys would put or who you guys would put in each tier. How many players you guys have in each tier. Let us know that again. YouTube section, comments, or over on Twitter. I appreciate you guys making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button over at the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons. Give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully. And all of you guys who are big fans of his, go bug the hell out of him on Twitter. But hopefully we have Saddiq Bey on the podcast this week. Me and him have been in talks for a long time. This past week, he tweeted out, if I can get to 8,200 followers on Twitter, he'll do the interview Monday. I got to it within like minutes after that. So we should have an episode with Saddiq Bey this week. Stay tuned. I'm hoping it happens. If it doesn't happen this week, it definitely will happen. We are steady in talks about trying to get a date down. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Make sure you guys check out Bryce's podcast, Pistons Pulse on Tuesdays. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.